All right, welcome to our Traffic Signal Maintenance, Reducing Your Agency's Exposure to Liability webinar. This webinar is sponsored by University of Tennessee in Knoxville Center for Transportation Research and our Tennessee Transportation Assistance Program, our TTAP Center here in Knoxville. Due to the number of agencies that have registered and are signing in on our webinar, I'm going to turn off my camera and I would request you guys to do the same. Let me go to my next slide. So we had close to 150 registrations as of yesterday. I hope everyone is safe and healthy out there. Happy to see and to have so many Tennessee agencies participating in our webinar today. We have folks from Knoxville, Knox County, Goodlettsville, Maryville, Cleveland, Memphis, Chattanooga, Gallatin, Bristol, and many more agencies throughout Tennessee. Many of you folks have attended our Traffic Signal Academy in the past. I would also like to acknowledge several states that are participating on this webinar. And they are Arkansas, Florida, South Dakota, Michigan, Kansas, Washington, and a special one for Washington here. My sister lives in Redmond, and I think we have somebody from Redmond, Washington, so good to have you here. Missouri, Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, New York, South Carolina, and New Jersey. Of course, not sure if everyone is logging into the webinar, but those are the ones we would like to recognize from our registration yesterday. So I'm a research associate here at the University of Tennessee Center for Transportation Research. My name is Ayrton Coles. I did all my education here at UT, did my PhD, finished my PhD in 2010. And since then, I've been working with the center to help with some of this training. Professional experience, I have both on the public and private agencies. I have participated in both public and private agencies. I am the principal instructor of the Traffic Signal Academy. We will be talking about a little bit of this Traffic Signal Academy as we go through the presentation. You can find more information on it on this website you have in front of you. And if you have any questions today or anytime regarding signals, feel free to send it to my email, acoles@utk.edu. Also, I'd like to let you know that one of my missions here is to help improve traffic signal practices in the state of Tennessee. And of course, I'm not doing that by alone. We partner with several agencies here in Tennessee, TDOT, our Tennessee DOT, and also the Tennessee Traffic Signal Users Group. That is a group of agencies that try to put together information to help local agencies in Tennessee regarding traffic signal information. Since 2010, we have been, again, working with these agencies. We bring training, we bring symposiums, we try to do as much as we can of technology transfer. And another piece of information that is important right now is that TDOT does not maintain signals like most of you guys know. And it's up to the local agencies to maintain traffic signals on state routes. So we have MOUs or Memorandum of Understandings between the local agencies and TDOT to maintain those signals. I believe this is true in several states around the country as well. Housekeeping items before we move any further. I would like you guys to sign in, of course, and type your full name on the chat box. And that's going to serve as our attendance. So please go ahead and do that now if you have not done it yet. We also are asking you to please do not use your camera during the presentation. We will have you muted throughout the presentation. To get your PDH certificate, we need you again to type your full name, and we're going to have that checked with the registration info. And our TTAP folks here are going to send that information back to you within the next 2 weeks. So your certificate should be available back to you within the next 2 weeks. Webinar materials are also going to be available for you. Spence have put together a web page where you're going to be able to download all the information we'll be using today. Any issues that you may have during the presentation, questions, please use the chat box. Again, my co-worker here, Spence Myers, will be available for any help needed from you. Thanks, Spence, for helping out with this. Let me go to the agenda items. Again, I'll try to honor the slot that we have between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock for the presentation, and then the next 15 minutes for Q&A. So basically, we're going to start with some intro and definitions. We're going to jump to guidelines, basic guidelines to reduce exposure to lawsuits. I'm going to give some quick information on traffic signal plans and staffing guidelines. And then we're going to jump into information regarding preventive maintenance, response, and operational maintenance. Towards the end of the webinar, we're going to talk about documentation and what we are doing here in Tennessee to help local agencies with that. And last but not least, we're going to have a slide on upcoming webinars. Then it's going to be your chance to ask me questions, and we're going to have about 15 minutes to do that. So hopefully I'll stay within the hour allotment, but if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask that on the chat box. Let's move on. I always like to give you the resources I'm using. So the first one, I'm going to have some checklists from our first book on the top left. Maybe many of you have it. It's an IMSA Traffic Signal Maintenance Handbook. This one is not free. The time I bought it several years ago, I think it cost between 80 and 100 bucks. Unfortunately, for some reason, I was looking online on Amazon, and I was not able to, even on IT, I was not able to find a way to buy this book. So I don't know, I was not able to track what happened, if they discontinued or what happened there, but very good information on it. If you have your hands on it, hold on to it. Our TTAP Center has one. We can loan you the book for a few days if you need it. And the other resources we're going to be using is our Signal Timing Manual, first edition and second. So the one on the center here, top center, is our first edition. The second one is NCHIP Report 812. Both of those are free, and I'll be providing you that on the webinar that Spence have set up. You can either Google it if you don't have it, or you can download from our website. FHWA has two good documents there regarding staffing guidelines and the traffic signal management plans that we're going to touch briefly on today. And the last document I'll be using on the presentation is a document that is coming from Pennsylvania, and those are guidelines for maintenance and operations of traffic signals. It's from 2010, but again, it's still relevant, very good information, very descriptive, several checklists in there that you guys can definitely find very useful. All right, so let's jump into, again, so just some intro, some definitions of installation. So all actions required to provide a properly functioning system, right? So a very important step on traffic signal systems when you're installing, when you're constructing your infrastructure. Inspection is very, very important. Some agencies do not have inspection and just rely on contractors. And as you're going to see in some slides coming up, I'll warn you that you have some good inspection to avoid future problems. So the best you can do during inspection process, the better. That's where you do testing, debugging, and you have your final acceptance of your system, of your signal. You have operations, right? Those are all the actions necessary to actually run the properly functioning system, including information that you may be exchanging between your agency, traveling public, and maintenance personnel. So it's definitely not a one-man show. You need to have those in the office, you need to have those on the road, and you need to communicate with each other. You need to feed from each other information and work together, okay? The last piece here on the traffic signal systems, on the definition, is management. Somebody has to run the show, somebody has to oversee and run the entire process. So basically, management is the allocation of all necessary resources to provide for the proper operation of a functioning system. So leaving that behind, we still have definitions of preventive, response, and operational. Most of you, I think, are familiar with preventive and response. Preventive maintenance, those actions that are performed on a regularly scheduled basis, okay, every 6 months, every quarter, whatever you guys decide to do on your agency. Response maintenance, actions performed on as needed basis, so maybe a knockdown, maybe a storm, something like that. Operational maintenance is something that not all the agencies hear much about, and basically what it is just looking at your signal timing, all right? Any other operational activities that can improve the safety and mobility at a signalized intersection. So we cannot forget that, yes, there is your infrastructure maintenance, but you need to make sure that you're running optimized. Okay, I think later on we're going to discuss a little bit. Gone are the days that you're going to wait for 3 or 5 years to retime your signals. We have technology today that we should be using, if possible, to be a little bit more proactive. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And now if you're doing a good job with your maintenance and looking at recurring actions, maybe some problems that you have in the past, you may change something in the field, maybe it's something in the intersection, and you're going to have what's called a design modification type of maintenance. You're trying to accommodate for changes and to update installations. So here's the time for us. I'm going to have about 5 polls on the webinar. Hopefully it works well. Spence, I am not seeing the polls on my screen. Let's see if I can bring that up. When we did our trial, I was seeing the polls. Can you bring it up, Spence?
Just a minute, Ayrton. I'll have it just in a second.
Yeah, thanks. Of course, not everything would be perfect, right? So let's see if Spence can bring up the poll. And here is just going to be about some common issues that we may encounter. So as Spence is trying to get that up, basically the question, let me bring up the question here, for me at least, if we're not able to bring the poll. For some reason, we're not able to do that right now. So let me just bring the question and we can discuss anyways. You think you can do it, Spence? If not, I'm just going to go ahead and ask the question here anyways.
Yes, I got logged out, Ayrton, so I'll have to log back in on my other computer. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, that's fine, no problem. We can fix that for the next one. So just work on that. The first poll would be, what are the most challenging issues regarding traffic signal operations and maintenance? And what I had here prepared for you is old equipment, a main issue for you, is the lack of technical knowledge, training in your staff, a big issue for you. Is inadequate inspection during installation an issue for you? I think this next one is the one that is was probably going to be the winner. Lack of funding, not having enough money to do everything you want to do. Insufficient data collection efforts. Is that something that is a challenging issue for you? And the last one that I have on my poll that hopefully we'll be able to bring up soon or in the future here is run to failure approach to traffic signal maintenance. I have seen with my 10, 12 years of experience here in Tennessee that the state would go ahead and maybe put a signal out there. The agency would sign the memorandum of understanding, but then you start having issues with budgets and nobody actually do any maintenance. Somebody will only pay attention to that signal if something really bad happens to it. So that's what we call run to failure, okay? So let's keep on moving on. If Spence is able to bring the polls up in the future here, I'll bring that up again and we can see what you guys have to answer. I apologize for that, okay? All right, so Next here. So common issues. Speaking about our poll. So again, on the design side, you have restricted funding, lack of technical knowledge, and some agencies still have those issues with low bid, right? You ended up, I have never worked here in US, but when I was back in Brazil working, not with signals specifically, but we have a lot of issues with low bids. You knew that uh, product or equipment was going to have issues, but because of the bureaucracy, you ended up having to buy and install that signal or that type of equipment. And that later on provided a big issue for your agency. So when you look at installation, inadequate inspection, non-standardization of equipment, incorrect operation, all of those things can be challenges for you. Again, the maintenance, the run to failure, the insufficient budget. I'm pretty much sure that that was going to be our winner on our poll here. Do more with less, right? We always hear about that. You have to, every single year, your budgets are cut and you have to do more with less. And you try to keep the same level of operations and maintenance. Obsolete equipment, we're going to talk a little bit about our traffic signal asset management that we're doing here for Tennessee. I have seen some controllers that are 30, 35, 40 years old. What are the consequences on all of this? Increased motorist costs, right? Increased maintenance, increased crashes, liability, everything that we're trying to run away from, degraded environment. So why is it necessary to properly install and maintain traffic signal systems? And the main issue is, of course, one of the main issues is liability. The other one that comes first is always safety. You want those that you're working for, the citizens, to be safe when they go through their roadways. But what is liability? Why is liability important? So tort liability judgments due to negligent traffic signal installation and maintenance are placing an increased burden on government. Think how that money that maybe you have spent or are going to spend on lawsuits could be better utilized, right? I bet you that agencies are wasting money on lawsuits. If you just do maybe a little preventive maintenance, a little better job on the preventive maintenance, maybe you hire somebody else to help, maybe you can get a decrease on lawsuits and you can save lives. If I remember correctly, the ITE IMSA traffic signal maintenance book that I just showed you earlier illustrates a case where an agency lost a lawsuit and had to pay about 20% of their entire agency budget. And I think the agency budget for the entire year, not only for signals, not only for transportation, was about $40 million, okay? So that's a lot of money for an agency to kind of lose with a lawsuit like that. Costs for liability insurance. Do you still have it available? Is your city still able to get liability insurance? Those have increased dramatically and strained local government budgets. Don't count on government immunity. Courts and legislatures have reduced the defense of government immunity. Again, we cannot rely on the notion that the agency cannot be sued, okay? Yes, maybe our state agency cannot be sued more than $200,000, but still, okay, don't count on those things. What is negligence? So by definition, it's the failure to comply with the duty, and here's the important thing, the failure to comply with the duty to maintain traffic signal equipment in a reasonably safe condition through some act or omission on the part of the agency or its employees, okay? This duty that we're talking about requires construction and maintenance in conformance with accepted standards and practices. So you cannot just go out there and build your signal any way you want it, right? It includes procedures to ensure that unsafe conditions are identified and that corrective action is taken within a reasonable period of time and with a reasonable standard of care. So duty of your agency to do the right thing, standard of care. TTAP has a class on transportation litigation. They talk about the whole day about these things, negligence, liability, all right? So I noticed that Spence was able to bring up the poll. So we don't skip that. Let me go ahead and bring up that first poll. Is everybody able to see that, Spence? I think we're good. Okay, so again, for some reason it's not showing everything here, Spence, on my screen at least. Let me end the poll and bring it again. Let me relaunch the poll. There, it popped up. So again, sorry, I'm not going to play with it. So here you go. Okay, the poll.
Hold on, I've got it, Ayrton. Hold on
All
a
right.
second.
So what are the most challenging issues, again, going back to our previous slide, what are the most challenging issues regarding traffic signal operations and maintenance? Go ahead and mark no more than 3, okay? If you have the ability to go to your computer and select one of these, just go ahead and mark it down, and I'll wait a few seconds here and share the results with you, okay? And I can see right out of the bat that I was right about the lack of funding. Right, 5 more seconds, 4, 3, and I'll end the polling here. Let me share results. I'll give you more time on the future pollings that we have here. So hopefully you guys are seeing this. We can see that, yes, lack of funding is about 82%. Old equipment, there we go, 63%, right? And then we go to that run to failure approach to traffic signal maintenance. So I'm glad this worked. It's a good feedback to know our audience here. Again, we are familiar with most of these issues, and we're trying the best we can to involve everybody that have a decision on it to improve this. Okay, so let me stop sharing the results and close the poll and keep on moving on our slides here. So I talked about negligence. So let's go quickly here on basic guidelines to reduce your agency exposure to lawsuits. What I want to tell you about here is it all starts with good installation and inspection practices, right? Follow checklists. If you have a checklist, follow it. If you don't have one during the installation, make one. Experienced personnel helps here. If you have people that are seasoned, put them out there. Make sure that the contractors are doing a good job. Make sure that they're bringing the correct equipment. Make sure that their workers are doing those connections correctly. The inspector needs to be present at every stage of the construction. Document it. Take pictures of the process, all right? It may take a little bit of time. It may save you a lot of time in the future. Don't rely on the notion that, oh, I know that contractor. They have always done a good job. Don't rely on that. Make sure that you have somebody that you trust and that knows what they're doing in the field. There is also that extra cost to dig things out if something is not working properly. Think about the nuisance for the citizens when you have to do that. The traveling traffic, they have to go through that mess, and you could have streamlined that process in the beginning by having good inspection checklists. Carefully inspect and document materials. Test your signal equipment. Document any modifications. I'm pretty sure you'll be doing modifications to the original plans in response to any prevailing field conditions. Document, 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 okay? What else? On maintenance practices. Who is responsible for maintenance? Prior to your installation, determine who is responsible for traffic signal equipment maintenance. It's easy if your corridor of your installation is not on the border of 2 jurisdictions. But if it is, who is going to be responsible for it? Who is going to be maintaining? Train your maintenance personnel on proper actions to take during system malfunction or servicing. Remember, only qualified personnel should perform tasks. Avoid citizen help. Don't ask anybody to grab this or hand me that or hold the door or do anything. You need to have training from IMSA, specific training, or any state-provided training. Our traffic signal users group that I'm going to talk a little bit more about later, we're thinking about putting together some training that can go together with the IMSA training, all right, to make sure that folks are doing the best job they can out there. Seek temporary control by police when necessary. Plan for round-the-clock response maintenance, standby crews, spare parts. Maintenance crews should be provided and use adequate, up-to-date equipment. Don't leave it in the truck. You need to make sure that crews are using their safety equipment. We will watch a video in a bit, and we'll see how important safety harnesses and equipment is. One more thing, if possible, correct other new noticeable problems, not only the one that was mentioned on the work order. If you go out there and you see something, correct it. If you don't have the money or the time to do it right now, make sure that your supervisor knows about it, okay? Be proactive. Don't do just what it was asked on the work order. Let's keep on moving. Maintenance records, essential to an adequate defense in the event of a lawsuit. You hopefully don't have to go to court, but from what I learned with conversations I had with folks and about lawsuits, one of the first things that a judge is typically going to ask you is, does your agency have a traffic signal maintenance program? And you go and say, yes, sure. My guys check the signals every month. The next thing the judge is going to ask you, prove to me, give me the documentation. Do you have all the documentation needed to prove your maintenance? So hard copies or electronic formats, keep duplicate records stored at offsite locations. If you have a contractor that is doing for you, do they have a copy? Make sure they have one. It's best if daily updated and in a format approved by the legal system, if you know what that is. Here, I would like you to create the work ethic of completing reports on the day of the maintenance that the maintenance happened. Don't wait for tomorrow. Your memory may not be as good tomorrow. At least mine, I know it's not, okay? Don't trust your memory issues. If someone is calling to report an issue, maybe record the name of the caller, date, time. What else? The location, the apparent problem reported, name of the receiver, maintenance personnel identification, dispatch and arrival time of location, trouble found, action taken, time cleared. All of those pieces of information are going to be useful if you have a lawsuit. Good documentation practices will help your agency. Keep that in mind. Periodic inspections. So how often do you do maintenance? We usually hear from IT 6 months intervals, right? That's considered a reasonable exercise of due care. Review maintenance records for recurring complaints, problems with the signal equipment. Review crash records. Train public employees who regularly work on the street to look for and properly report damage or defective traffic signal equipment. Provide a phone number to call. This is called an Extra Eyes for Safety program. Everybody in your agency, you don't have to be only the transportation. If they see something out there, they also have the duty to let somebody know. I can tell you that when I'm driving out there and I see something that I can tell TDOT, hey, I see some water ponding on the road, I try to find somebody that I can call and make sure that they fix that, okay? Construction zone controls, traffic control plan. Make sure your people are familiar with the MUTCD, that they are trained on traffic control plans, work zones. Inform local law enforcement, emergency service agencies, your transit services of any lane closures, detours, etc. A lot of agencies are already doing that. Some smaller ones are not. And then you cause issues and even maybe problems or even crashes to your citizens. Inspect all the work zone warning and traffic control devices during both daytime and nighttime. And this is important, especially during nighttime. Document, take a picture. It may save your behind in court someday. Okay, I can tell you that my behind was saved when I did that back in Brazil. I took pictures, and of course, that night we had a crash, and they were suing the agency. And guess what saved the agency? My pictures. We proved that we have the adequate traffic control in place. A quick word on traffic signal plans. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but just a few things. So what are traffic signal plans used for? Of course, contractor bids, signal construction, right? Here's where your contractor will rely on to build your signals. It also helps with operating and maintaining the signal. Here we go, tort claims and lawsuits. They are going to go to court if needed. As-built drawings. Good traffic signal plan design makes the entire process easier. We just talked about good installation practices, right? So let's take a look at the next slide here. You need to make sure, and this is for mostly for the consultants, if we have any on the webinar, I think we do. You need to make sure that those plans are readable. I have seen contractors talking to me and say, hey, we don't know what the consultant put on the plans. Of course, you always have the chance to go back and ask, but make the process easier, all right? Please have someone in your agency check the consultant work. Have your local policies been observed, represented in the plans? Is it good enough to say that we just did what the consultant had in the plans? Remember, due care involves all parties. Don't blame just the consultant. Everyone, somebody, at least it's my understanding, when somebody's suing, they try to sue everyone, not only your agency, not only the engineer. They try to go after everybody, consultants, contractors, whoever gives them some money, that's what they're looking for, right? So try to make sure that you have this piece of the system working properly. Make sure that your plans are readable. Avoid having too much info in one plan sheet. Okay, this is an example from a Minnesota design manual. They are using this to show you that maybe there's too much information here. Maybe the letters are too small for the contractors to bid on and to actually construct the signal. Utilities issues. We can probably spend another 15, 20 minutes talking about that. The one-call system, right? Are you part of that? Do you have that in your agency? Okay. Some agencies have great utilities databases. They know exactly what's underground, and they have that on a CAD file. Other agencies have to ask somebody to go out there and mark it out. Even when it's marked, we have heard that people go out there, contractors go out there, they start digging, and boom, there goes a water main or something, right? So again, let's make sure that we find a way to all work together here and have good traffic signal plans. Here's an example from, I believe, Utah Department of Transportation, where you start overlaying some information on some Google images or whatever Bing images that facilitate the job of constructing and maintaining the signal. So those are my 2 cents here on traffic signal plans. Okay, let's move into maintenance, traffic signal maintenance. So the first thing is staffing guidelines. How many people do you need? How many engineers? How many technicians? What are some good references that you have? So first thing, let me tell you about my experience here in Tennessee. I have seen agencies with 30 signals where a pavement inspector and a truck driver were responsible for signal maintenance. That's what the agency have. Is that okay? Maybe not, but that's what they have, okay? And the good thing was that the agency was looking for training those guys. I have also seen an agency with 50 or more signals, no engineer on the staff, and the technician did an awesome job. Just one technician took care of everything. Very proactive, looking for things and trying to provide the best practice. We also have agencies responsible for more than 1,300 signalized intersections here in Tennessee, and they do a great job, okay? Even though they are constrained on budgets. So it varies a lot here in Tennessee. One of TDOT's effort with the Traffic Signal Users Group is to help share knowledge among local agencies. So those of us that are part of the Traffic Signal Users Group, we're trying to find ways of sharing knowledge between larger agencies, smaller agencies. So on your screen, you can see that an agency may need a variety of staff positions, okay? The size and breadth of the staff dedicated to traffic signal operations and maintenance should depend primarily on the size and complexity of the system you have. Chattanooga with 300 and something signals is going to need something different from what maybe, I don't know, Goodlettsville needs, okay? Urban areas versus rural areas come into consideration. You may have 100 signals in 1 square mile versus 100 signals in 1,000 square miles. So here are some positions that you can find on your signal timing manual, 2nd edition. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll let you go back to the resource and look at that. If you're looking for some job descriptions, we may be able to help you. The traffic signal users group may be able to help you. We're starting to compiling some of those and put it in a document that maybe others can use. The general rule of thumb that I was able to get from FHWA document in Pennsylvania is that you need one traffic engineer for every 75 to 100 signals. So one traffic engineer. One qualified technician for every 40 signalized intersections, okay? So now if you have more than 150 signalized intersections, if you have non-standardized traffic signal equipment, you have PIC, McCain, Econolights, Interlights, whatever type of equipment you have, that makes things a little bit more difficult. Older equipment, like we already know that a lot of you have, larger intersections. I know that additional staff is recommended there, but here are some, again, general rule of thumb numbers, okay? Moving on to preventive maintenance. Again, by definition, preventive maintenance are actions performed on a regularly scheduled basis. The main objectives is do what you can now to avoid issues in the future. Prevent the failure of equipment before it actually occurs. Preserve, enhance equipment reliability by replacing old components before they can actually fail. Benefits, several benefits here. And the first one is what we're here for, right? Reducing the agency's exposure to liability. Here's where I got my idea for the name of the webinar. Extends the life of the installation. Identify potential problems before it happens, okay, that you can address. Reduce the frequency and severity of those malfunctions. Make better use of your manpower and resources, okay? Maybe your people can do better things than just be running and running out there and fixing things. Now, here's the video I talked about. So before we play, I'm saying safety, 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 okay? Maintenance staff should receive training in temporary traffic control, like I mentioned before, electrical line safety, and fall protection. Remember, the safety of an agency's employee is definitely paramount, but the safety of roadways users, those citizens that we are working for, are equally important. So what you're about to watch happen in Florida, the speed here is about 50 miles per hour. And let me play. I'm going to stop talking. I think in our practice run here, we saw some issues if I was talking over the video. So let me just run the video at the end. I'm going to come back, all right? And hopefully we don't have any glitches here. So hopefully everybody was able to see that. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you can see what happened, right? Thankfully, the worker walked away unharmed. Safety harnesses were obviously on, right? You can see that. But what was not on, what was not happening was that lane closure that was necessary. How many times we think, and I'm saying these are the guys that are on the road, oh no, I can do this without creating a big congestion on the highway, right? No need to close lanes. I'm at the end of my shift. I'm just going to fix this quickly so I don't have to come back tomorrow. Don't think like that. The worker hung there for about 30 seconds to a minute. There was another bus that was coming behind that truck and almost killed that worker, but it was able to maneuver around it. Okay, so again, think about the safety of your employees and about the safety of citizens. Let me move on. I'm running a little behind. Extending the life of installation. Okay. Did I skip one? Yeah, sorry, I skipped one. Here we go. Coming back. Proper documentation again. Successful preventive maintenance will have the following. Record drawings. It will show the actual location of traffic signal equipment regarding any modifications done to the original design. It's very important when the agency needs to do a mark out at a signalized intersection. Approved timing directions, and I think this one is very important. It describes how the controller is programmed to operate on the intersection. Typically, it should be compared to the timing information collected each time you do preventive maintenance. Central systems today are helping us, but smaller agencies don't do that. Are they checking their timings during the preventive maintenance? I was in Alabama last December and speaking with one of my peers, he mentioned that a study of a small agency in Alabama found that close to 75% of the controller clocks were running an incorrect time. And after they fixed that, they decreased delays for a bunch, okay? So simple things like that. Having the logbook describes the date and the time, name and technician servicing the equipment, reason for the visit, the work you performed, the parts you replaced, and you know about the logbooks. Okay, so those parts are important. Extending the life of the installation. So these are just preventive maintenance things that you can do to help extend the life of the installation. Change the cabinet filter. Make sure the cabinet fan is working. Make sure all signal hardware is tight and properly installed. If you never go to the intersection, you don't know about these things. Maybe check if your loop detectors are sealed. All right. So let's try our second poll now. Let me bring polling number 2. Spence, let's see, maybe this is going to be a different number. I think Spence have
It's just the next one. The next
all right,
one.
so we're actually calling the next polling number 3 here. So how often does your agency perform preventive maintenance? Once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, or never? So I'm launching the poll, and please go ahead and give me an answer here. Maybe never. Hopefully I don't see a whole lot of never in here, but again, I'm already seeing 3 or 4, okay? So another 5 or 10 seconds, I'm gonna end the polling, share results with you, and from what I was able to get, about 55% do once a year. That's a typical number, okay? Twice a year, a lot of agencies do that too. 3 to 4, great. Never, not so great. So maybe you need to come in here and have a plan for what you're gonna do for your preventive maintenance. So I'm gonna stop sharing the results, close this, and keep on moving. Frequency. So we just talked about that, right? So again, should be performed at regularly scheduled intervals. Typically, every 6 months is a good measure of due care, like we mentioned before. Review maintenance records or service calls, determine trends, design an appropriate schedule for your own agency. Whatever works for you, as long as it's inside once a year or twice a year, okay? Equipment age plays a role here, of course. It's also good practice to inspect signals after severe weather, and we all know that. Tools and equipment, I'm not gonna go into a whole lot of detail here, but you have a whole bunch of equipment that can be used, right? All of this listed here. Your certified CMU, MMU testers. You may get printouts. You may have voltage tests, power conflicts, red fail conflicts, short yellow indications, and all of that. You may be saying, well, maybe my agency don't have the money to purchase all of this. We don't have it. We don't have the money to do all of this. I understand that, but you should at least check on larger agencies that maybe have this and are willing to partner with you. Maybe for a symbolic fee, you can get some of their folks testing it for you, okay? It's a reduced cost. It's much, much cheaper than having to go through a lawsuit in the future. This baseline assessment is something that you have on the IT document there, on the IT guidelines. Here we're going to take a look on the condition of the traffic signal equipment and how that can help plan for future actions. A physical inventory of the equipment and hardware in each intersection is needed. A physical layout of the equipment. Identification of operational deficiencies. Maybe you can use automated traffic signal performance measures if you're there yet. Identification of design deficiencies. Review past maintenance practices. So basically, once you've done this, you should have something in your hands of what you must do right now. I cannot avoid that. What you should do and what you could do. Okay, so basically that's, of course, going to depend on your budgets, but basically that's your baseline assessment. Checklists. The IMSA IT has some great checklists again. Of course, there's no way we can go through all of this. Minimum requirements is the only one I'm going to give you more info on the next slide, but you have vehicular signal heads, pedestrian signal heads, pedestrian push buttons, traffic signal cables, vehicle detection, loops, videos. So those agencies that responded that they never have a preventive maintenance before, or they are not doing it, maybe this is a good start. Okay, well, we'll have some information here that I'm going to share with you, and if you email me, I'll be glad to share some more. All right, controller assembly, checking all of those things, making sure it's running properly. So here is what I just said on the previous one, the minimum requirements, the preventive maintenance. So what that checklist looks like. Check your vehicular signal heads, check your pedestrian signal heads. All right, check the span wire indications, signal indications, including mounting hardware. Are they brittle? Are they breaking? Do you think they're going to break tomorrow? If you have a next windstorm, what's going to happen? Think about those things. Check your vehicle detection, check controller, meter cabinets, check on controller assembly, check preemption, and all of those things, okay? Your question may be, well, how long does it take to do all of this stuff? From the knowledge I have, if you have an experienced person, it may be between 45 minutes to an hour on each intersection. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but you have to plan for that, okay? Deficiencies that require immediate action. So here's a list of things that, again, I'm not going to read all of them, but that you can think about, and think about public safety and how you're going to reduce your exposure to lawsuits. A CMU or MMU failed the test. What you're going to do? You need to replace it. You have bad load switches. You need to replace it. Damaged signal heads. Non-functioning preemption. Damaged, frayed, or faulty cables. All right, we have talked to agencies that they say we have only a specific technicians that can touch that specific intersection because they know what those wires look like and how frayed they are. We don't have the money to change that. So again, we go back to the budget thing. Bad controllers. All right, so this gives you a little bit of a start on some of the deficiencies that need immediate action from your agency to avoid getting in trouble. Let's move straight on response maintenance. What is it? Again, by definition, is when you have a knockdown, when you have a storm, when you have a signal flashing, when you have a signal operating with multiple indications like the picture on the right, the red and the green at the same time, okay? That's your response maintenance. That's when you have to call in late at night to somebody to go there and fix that. If you don't have the people, maybe you have contracted it out. How many stories have I heard of technicians working all night long to have the signal up and running the next morning? Cars on top of cabinets, trucks smashing equipment, and so on. Those of you that have done this for a while are familiar with this, right? Dark indications. Again, we always try to, and this is not for this class, but we always try to don't just go out there and press the reset conflict monitor button. Try to understand what happened to the intersection before you do that. Okay, but that's topic to another webinar, another class. This is important right here. Let me spend a little bit more time. Look at this slide, and this should get your attention. Let's check some of the numbers here. So basically, on the top, you can see a table with response maintenance calls without a preventive maintenance. This is a 30-month period. 3 agencies, and the number close to the ABC is the number of signals they have. So let's just look at A. This agency have 43 signals in a period of 30 months. They had 27 issues with dark indications, 53 with flashing, 68 with lamp out or LED issues, 5 issues with MMU, 21 equipment failures to a total of 174. Now, once they implemented the preventive maintenance program, the next 30-month period provided the following numbers. The same agency, 10 dark, 35 flashing, still kind of high, but much lower from the previous one, 26 lamp outs, 2 MMUs, 9 failures, equipment failures, to a total of 82. So basically half, 50% improvement, just by doing your preventive maintenance, okay? What I get here is, in front of you, is I'm working on a new webinar for you guys. And with the help of several agencies, we're going to get together and put some good stuff for you. While I was doing that, I got this email from Brandon Lee on City of Mount Juliet that I would like to read. We have stepped up maintenance in the last 3 years, and as a result, our call volumes have dropped drastically. Most of our calls are weather-related, power failure in the area, or an element out. We have been doing maintenance of cabinets twice a year, about to go quarterly, and overhead maintenance at least once every spring. The storm in March, the tornado that broke every electric pole on Mount Juliet Road, broke one of our service wires at one intersection, and mostly just turned signal heads and ripped off visors. We had signals repaired within 2 hours, waiting for the electric company to restore power. Other than the maintenance that we're doing better, the most important part I learned is keep an inventory. Okay, so I don't know if you're on the call, Brandon, but thanks for that email. I'm using it here. Okay, thanks. Let's go. Before I go here, I actually skipped poll number 3 or poll number 4, I guess. So let's go to poll number 4. Let me hear again from you. Does your agency have a standard operation procedure for response maintenance? Maybe some of you don't know what a standard operation procedure is. Okay. So standard operation procedure, do you have a plan to what's going to happen? Who is going to answer the call when you get a call? So go ahead and answer that first one there in the top, if you guys are seeing it. Does your agency have a standard, just the one at the top, just number 1, if you don't mind. You guys are doing number 2 and 3, that's fine too. Okay, I'll come back to it later. Does your agency have a standard operation procedure? We have 82%. Great, that's good. But we still have a few agencies out there that don't have that. Okay, I'll come back to the agency have a traffic signal inventory and documentation there. I'll come back to that one. So let me end the polling, share results. For now, let's just pay attention to number 1 here. Does your agency have a standard operation procedure? Yes, 88%, great, 12% no, okay? So I'll come back to the other polls. So let me move on. I have about 6 or 7 minutes. We'll probably run a little over, but that's fine. Standard operation procedures, simply a plan or how you're going to handle calls regarding traffic signal devices. It can be done in-house or contracted out. Think about off hours, holidays, weekends. Typically, the 2-hour response time is accepted, standard. It's necessary to consider the geographic area to be covered. Can your guys reach out in 2 hours, that signal that is in trouble or having an issue? Think about call initiation procedures, right? Determine the list of intersections. Here's your inventory and who is responsible for what. Let authorities, 911 dispatchers know about who is responsible for what. Name the person making the notification, who is going to be called at 2 o'clock in the morning. All of that needs to be planned. Okay? Some agencies are actually afraid to keep records on this, to know what happened and who called and all of that. That mentality of, oh, I don't know about my problems. Maybe if I don't know about my problems, I don't have to fix them. That's wrong. Don't go there. Okay? Document. Make sure you have information about what happened and try to have a plan in place to respond to your problems. Okay? That's good practice here. There's this simple approach where you go to the site conditions upon arrival, implement temporary control measures to restore normal operation, and so on. So let me walk you through these 6 different ones here. So basically here is make sure you note the time of arrival when you arrived at the location for your response maintenance. Confirm that the trouble reported is what you actually is observing. Determine that the problem can be fixed immediately or needs additional manpower and equipment needed. Call for necessary additional help following the agency's procedure. But most importantly, again, don't forget to use your safety equipment. So that's for site conditions upon arrival. Make sure you have your temporary traffic control. Okay, I've said at least twice here about work zones and all of that. Follow the MUTCD and state or local standard procedures. Ask assistance from law enforcement or enforcement if needed. Please don't let your technician direct traffic. You have liability. You may have liability issues if you do. All right. Avoid technicians doing that. If you're in need of that, you need to call the police, you need to call the cops. This may not be readable for all of you, especially those looking at a phone, but basically this is a table that the IT provides, matching your specific maintenance task to all your typical applications from the MUTCD traffic control work zone plans. Okay, so if you have a knockdown, you can use any of the 6 plans there, typically used on the 6 plans that you have for the work zones. So if you did that, again, we're going to provide this copy of the webinar, but if you need it in a larger format, just contact me and I'll send it. Document your actions. Again, documenting documents, avoiding lawsuits, all right? Measures to restore normal operation. Experienced and properly trained technicians is important if troubleshooting is necessary. If you just send a novice out there, maybe they're not going to be able to fix the problem. You need to have some people that know what they're doing, and it's hard to find. Okay, you see a lot of these guys, those issues of not having enough budget to pay them well, right? And they move into another agency, and then you have to retrain everybody. Workforce. Photos and documentation. So again, it helps justify actions taken. Time and try to date stamp each photo taken. We have technology to do that very easily. Take pictures of the installed traffic control. Take a picture of the restoration of the operation. Remember to reference where you are, the name of the intersection. These things take time? Yes, it takes time. It takes a little bit of time. But again, it can save you a whole bunch of money in the case of a lawsuit. Remember, these pictures can prove that you are doing the best you can on your maintenance, all right? Document your actions, log the events. Again, complete the call report immediately after the work is finished, all right? I'm going to provide you in the next slide some standardized call reports you may have already for your agency. For those that don't, here's a good stepping and a good starting point. Evaluate the need for additional repairs. You may also schedule additional work tasks if required. Bench test damaged components if applicable. Again, review past responses. Okay, so all those things are good practices here. Here's our sample traffic signal service call report. Oh, sorry, I went back, my bad. Here's our sample traffic signal service call report. Yours don't have to look like this. Okay, this is from a contractor that shared with us. Your reported trouble, your cause of trouble, condition upon arrival, all those things that we talked about. Action taken, materials used, additional work. And one tip that I can give you that I got from the contractor that helped us out with some of the classes is have the service call signed only after your work is finished. If you have not finished the work on the road and you take back to the office, somebody needs to know that that work is not finished yet. And not having the signature, the technician's signature there, is maybe an indication. So find a way to have that kind of information available for you. Not going to spend too much time here. This is just a sample preventive maintenance checklist, again, that you can use if you don't have one. Our TDOT traffic design manual have several. Pennsylvania document that I'm going to share with you have several. So this is on signal heads, mast arm poles, everything, or most of the things that you can pick and choose that can apply to your preventive maintenance. Span wires, electrical control panel, vehicle detection, pedestrian buttons, housekeeping, conflict monitor. I didn't plan to spend time on this. This is just a sample preventive maintenance checklist, all right? So with the 15 seconds I have, I'm going to spend a little bit more, probably 5 seconds. I'm going to run into our Q&A here. For the 5 seconds, for the 5 minutes we have here, let me talk a little bit about operational maintenance. And I think this is important. All the preventive maintenance, here's my timer letting me know that I don't have more time, right? But let's talk a little bit about operational maintenance, okay? Preventive and response is important, but you guys need to pay attention to operational maintenance as well. So by definition, one more time, all operational maintenance are all actions including the analysis of traffic signal timing and other operational activities that can potentially improve safety and mobility at intersection. Here, think about signal timing, okay? I would like you guys to go out there and check your timings. Let's talk a little briefly about frequency, technology, objective-based approach, our TSMPs, the traffic signal management plans, and the latest and greatest IT guidelines for clearances. All right? So not a whole lot of detail here. I'm just going to point you to some things, and we'll go from there. So regarding frequency, how often we need to retime signals? If I have a poll here, I would say that most of you would be saying 3 to 5 years. That's maybe an indication that we're still running the reactive approach, right? We're waiting for complaints to go out there and check something, to maybe get a consultant to look at something. The recommended practice today, especially from FHWA, is to be proactive. Okay, so it depends where your agency stands today again. Are you still reacting to things, or are you being proactive? I believe most of the country is on the reactive side. Budget constraints, I know, I have heard that. So let's again compare this. On the left side, you're reacting every 3 to 5 years retime. Maybe a new box company comes to town and your engineering folks say, well, we need to retime our signals. Now, if you have technology that I'm going to show you later on the next slide, like ATSPMs, right? You're going to have the ability to have your agency goals, and you don't need ATSPM to have an agency goals, by the way. But you need to have the goals. What do you want to do with that intersection? What do you want to do with that corridor at that time of the day? You have the context, the objectives. You look at your performance measures, you have some strategies, and you keep going back on that cycle. So maybe those 3 to 5 years is going to turn out into what? 5 months, 2 months, 3 months? It depends, all right? It depends on what you're seeing from the feedback you're getting from your performance measures. So here again, going to the next slide, technology. Most of us are probably on the left, still collecting traffic data, maybe 1 day a week, 2 days a week, on 1 week of a year, and trying to guess what's traffic going to do on the next 3 to 5 years. If we save some money from the potential lawsuits that we're running, all right, if we invest wisely, you're able maybe to get some new technology. You don't have to put everything at once, but plan for it. A few signals this year, more signals next year, and you can incorporate ATSPMs into your agency's workflow. I was in Florida and was asking them, are you guys using ATSPMs? How often and how many people are doing that? And what I heard was, well, we have 2, they're running about 600 signals, by the way. They're maintaining. So they have 2 people that every morning for 2 hours, they would go through their ATSPMs and look at that and provide feedback to technicians and engineers and so on, okay? So that's good practice. Maybe we need to start doing that, and if you're not already, start working on that. Next, what is this objectives approach? So basically, does your agency have operational objectives set in place? Are you just plugging in data, or your timing software and setting the split, or sorry, are you just plugging in data on your timing software and setting the speed out on the controller? So you just get whatever you get from Synchro and put it out there, or do you actually think about it? So we don't have time to go into details, but I borrowed this from Richard Dini from FHWA. Are you focusing on intersections or on a corridor network style? Are you under congested or uncongested flow? Is your operational objective the same for all scenarios? So there's no one answer fits all, okay? So think about that. Think what your objective is and how you're going to have a plan to make that happen on your roads. To do that, you're going to need a traffic signal management plan. So this document here to the right that you can download from our website pretty shortly, we're going to provide you that link, is intended to look at a high level and put everything together. Okay, the goals, the objectives, the strategies, the performance measures, any plans that you have for bicycles, for pedestrians, for maintenance, and look at that all together and help you out. Okay. The research, this document has shown that the extent to which an agency provides good service to its community is not necessarily directly related to the prevalence of resources. Some well-funded agencies are not high performers. Just because you have a whole lot of money doesn't mean that you're doing great. While some agencies that are not well-funded provide a high standard of service, of service within their knowledge constraints and in accordance with their plan. Because they have a plan. They know what they want out there and they execute it, okay? So if you have this TSMP, this traffic signal management plan, if you work on it, and I have some examples to share if you don't have one, you have a starting points for maybe new staff that come in. Those succession planning that we all have gone through, right? That seasoned senior guy have left and have taken with him or her all the knowledge on our agency. If you have this plan, somebody that comes after that person can use it, all right? Last but not least here, operational maintenance. I don't know if you guys all know about this, but IT just launched in March before we went into these crazy times of the pandemic, these guidelines for determining traffic signal change and clearance intervals. We're not going to spend time on this. I cannot give you for free. You're going to have to go to the IT website and pay for it, download it, all right? But make sure that you are up to date on your clearances. That's safety component. You need to be able to do that. Documentation, very quickly here. Let's go now back to my polls. Sorry, I shared the wrong page. Let me close that. Polls here. That's question number 2. Does your agency have a traffic signal inventory? And from before, I'm just going to share results. Most of you have 85%. Great, awesome. Okay, that you know where your signals are. And by traffic signal inventory, I'm not just saying knowing where the signals are. Knowing what you have on each intersection, what type of infrastructure you have, and what you're running there. Is your traffic signal inventory documented? How is it documented? Well, some agencies have it on a specific software, and 55% have on a spreadsheet file like Excel. That's okay. All right, that's fine. So let me stop sharing the results and wrap up the webinar here in a little bit. So what you have in front of you is what we're helping TDOT, and we're also working with the Tennessee Traffic Signal Users Group to get a statewide traffic signal asset management system for the state. So we have several times mentioned inventory, right? And documentation on our presentation today. Our statewide SAMs originated from a conversation I had with some folks from Pennsylvania. And I think I have somebody from Pennsylvania on the call today. Anyways, Pennsylvania has a great SAMs in place. Basically, it's a web-based inventory of traffic signals infrastructure. TTAP is focusing on helping smaller agencies develop and modernize these inventories. Maybe go from the spreadsheet to something more easy for them to use. I can tell you it's not an easy data collection effort. We believe we are a third of the way in. Our estimate is about 5,000 signalized intersections in Tennessee. I think we have about 1,500 in the system right now, okay? One more slide here. This is a sample from Lebanon, Tennessee. They did a good job with their inventory. They have all the Google images and overlay with the infrastructure, number of signal heads, and all of the information. But I have gone to some agencies that only know where the signals are. And as I went through it and looked on Google Earth, there was not a signal there. Maybe it was an issue with the dated Google Earth image, okay? So again, I have gotten a lot of, I don't have time to do this. Well, maybe you're gonna need it in the future. Okay, so TTAP is here to try to help you. If you have a smaller agency, maybe we have the time to help you out with that. So that's our SAMs, or our documentation process. We're looking into putting maybe maintenance information, a copy of maintenance information here, a copy of the signal timing information in this web-based database as well, not only your infrastructure. In summary, so as we wrap up here and go to the Q&A. Agencies have the duty to maintain and operate traffic signals. All right, remember the duty. Remember about the safety of citizens and workers. Everybody's part of the system. Review or establish traffic signal maintenance practices, documentation, and don't forget about operational maintenance. So these are some of the takeaways I would like you guys to keep with you from the webinar. Last but not least, I told you about a webinar that we're working on. So several cities in Tennessee, unfortunately, have been struck with bad weather. So we were able to get some information from there. We're going to start getting together on some calls and put information together and do something similar to what I just did here. All right. So this webinar is going to be called Traffic Signal Maintenance, Lessons Learned from Storm Recovery from East to West here in Tennessee. These are some pictures that I have collected. Thank you for the guys there, David Metzger, Adam Moser. The one on Adam actually is from Florida, but we're going to use every information we have to try to help you out on what to do after storms. All right. We're going to be thinking about new webinars as well. So I know I ran over about 15 minutes here, but Spence, I think it's time now to go to the chat box. If we have anybody with any questions already, please let me know. If I don't know how to answer the question, I'll try to answer the question as soon as I can. So go ahead, Spence.
Yes, Ayrton, we have a couple of questions. I'm going to let Paul Cho ask his question.
All right.
Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, right. Thank you. So you had a recommendation for staffing needs, and it just identified traffic signals, but most agencies also have other active devices such as flashers, speed radar signs, street lights, CCTV, even a communication network. Do you have any information that expands on that basic number?
Not right now. I usually like to go and research on all of that. Okay, so that's a good topic for me to do, to go on. And right now I don't have any numbers on that or any specific numbers on that. I don't even know if there is a research on flashers and other things, but we're getting ready to work with Chattanooga and other agencies here in the States, TDOT, and provide some additional training. So what I can promise you I'm going to do is look for that type of information. And if I find anything, I'm going to share with not only you, but with the group. Do you guys have any numbers that you can share with right now, or you're just looking for specifics on that? We're trying again to, how many people do you need for communications that need to be able to play with communications and all ITS devices out there? Do you have any feedback or anything that you can share on that?
Well, I mean, our agency has just over 100 traffic signals, but we also maintain 1,800 street lights. We probably have about 70 CCTV and somewhere in the vicinity of 50 flashers. They include crosswalk flashers like RFBs, as well as school zone flashers. We also maintain a high-speed fiber optic network with, I think we're on a one gig speed right now, and it's a layer 3 network. So we have 4 maintenance staff, and we feel we are so understaffed. And part of it is just the bodies necessary to complete just regular, as you pointed out, response and operational. But also, with only having 4 staff, if you have anybody on vacation, anybody gets sick, then our abilities are cut 25% and down to 50%. As you noted in that video, aerial work, we always have 2 people doing aerial work. So that really limits the type of activities we can be involved in if we are trying to do inspection of construction projects as well as doing any kind of aerial or repair work. And I think those are some of the intangibles that's overlooked.
Yeah. All right, Paul. Well, thank you very much for that feedback there. Again, I'll make my best effort to find something and share with you and the group, okay, on any research on that. Spence, you have anybody else?
Yeah, we got a couple more, Ayrton. Craig Compass, can you, if you'd like to, you could ask your question.
My question was the same as what you just got asked about the any way to look at that numbers and correlate the personnel.
All right. Okay.
Okay,
Again,
I thought they were similar. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I'll find something and look at something for you. If not, That's a good topic for research. We're always looking for research and ways of providing information that you guys need out there. Next one, Spence.
And then Tad Bacon has a question: have battery backups become a standard?
Hey Ted, not sure about that yet. If anybody else in the call is able to answer that for me, that'll be great. But I'm seeing more and more agencies going to backups, UPSs, but not sure if it has become a standard. I'll go ahead and check. I've not checked with Steve Bryan there at TDOT if it has become a documentation kind of official standard that agencies have to use that. I think not, but I'll check on that, Ted.
Okay, Erson, if we've got time, we've got another question.
All right.
From Smitty, it says, for state DOTs that do not operate or maintain traffic signals on the state highway system, in parentheses, local jurisdiction signed traffic control device agreement, maintain traffic signal, how can we help incentivize local cities and counties that don't have the resources to properly maintain traffic signals to avoid these liabilities as you presented today? We know what needs to be done to fix these existing traffic signals, but nothing gets done since we have no legal teeth or financial resources to enforce the TCD agreements in our state.
Well, the first thing is, I think every state has a TTAP, all right, or an LTAP center, like here in Tennessee. So what I can tell you, and I know it goes back to you mentioned not having teeth and not having maybe the money to do all of this. Those of you that have attended the Signal Academy probably can tell that I sometimes go overboard. I try to scare these people the heck out of them with, hey, you may be liable for this, you may be getting a lawsuit, and that's why I put this webinar together. Maybe that's one of trying to open these people's eyes, putting best practices out there, putting information from what has happened to other agencies. If they decide not to do it, that's their risk. We need to keep trying, but LTAP centers are always a good source of information. Training is, I think, what most of these agencies can do and folks can do to try to open their eyes. I know it's hard. Like I told you about the traffic signal asset management. Some agencies say, well, I don't have time for this. And I agree, they probably don't have time for that. But there's also that thing of, I don't want to know about my problems, all right? If I don't know about my problems, maybe I don't have to fix it. Well, maybe it's going to come back and bite you. Maybe it's time for you to start paying attention to the problems you have and start, you don't have to solve everything tomorrow. We know about the ADAs, right? We're not going to get into that realm here, but all the sidewalks, all of those things, you cannot solve everything, but you need to have a plan for it. You need to have a plan to what you're going to do in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever is your plan. So let me tell one more thing, and thank you for all the questions here. We're really running above what I have for the webinar, but one last thing. This signal asset management that we're working on, I don't know if anybody answered that, asked that, Spence, but it's free, okay? We're not going to charge anything. It's free for our Tennessee folks. I'll have to talk to my director here and see. I don't think there would be any problem sharing with other LTAPs in the country, and any other agencies that want to use that, use it. So again, it's free. We're not going to charge any agencies that. And the main idea is to make sure that agencies know what infrastructure is out there, how old that infrastructure is. Maybe that can give us some teeth here in Tennessee to talk to some of the folks that have the money to say, hey, my signals are 40 years old. We're talking about connected vehicle technology. And are we going to let those controllers that are 40 years old running out there? So that type of thing, that type of thing can be helpful when we know exactly what type of infrastructure we have out there. Spence, any other questions? If not, I think we'll end the webinar here. Thank you again so much for all of you that have registered, for all of you that have participated. We're going to share this information that I have, not only the webinar notes, but all the guidelines that I mentioned on the presentation. Anybody else, Vince?
Yeah, Ayrton, we'll have this available in an email to you all, but I've put the link in the bottom of the chat screen if you want to copy that link. That has everything except today's presentation. I'll have that up shortly, but if you want those other resources that he's mentioned, they're available right now if you want to copy it out of the chat menu. And
again, if you cannot download it, all of those informations are public, except for that IT IMSA. Send me an email, acoles@utk.edu. I'll be glad to share that with you. If you have any other questions that we didn't address here, or you're not feeling like asking me or asking us, please let me know. Send me an email. I'll be glad to talk to you later. All
and
right?
make sure if you came in late to sign your name into the chat group, so we'll have a record of your attendance.
That's right. So again, thank you very much for attending this, and looking forward to meet you again on a webinar. We're going to let you know when it's going to happen, that one about the storms recovery. Thanks.